haven't been in Dublin for January for a long time, but there used to be concerts in St. Anne's Church in Dawson Street in Dublin. They did the full set of the Bach cantatas on a Sunday afternoon, I think about 3:30. By the time you went out back on the street, just say it was 4:30 in January, it was dark. Dublin was dark. And even as you were going in at 3:30 or going down to the concert at 2:30, it was never fully bright. It was that you could get sharp light on a winter's day with a blue sky if you were lucky. Often you got fog, you got mist, you could get rain. Um, but it's very easy to conjure up from afar when you're living in it. You just wish for summer. You just wish for some light.
I was thinking in Land of Winter of the light when you do get a clear day in Ireland and it piercing right at your field of vision before it dissipates, usually around quarter to four, you know, and those months can be hard in Ireland, November, December, January, because it really is a diminishing light. Like, well, where you live in LA, of course, you've got beautiful, kind of consistent light. But in New Jersey, there's still kind of variance in the light, and there, but there's not that kind of that's I don't think of Irish weather as being particularly extreme, but the sense of light is extreme. Also, then the opposite way, where in summer where we're dying for some warm weather, which we never get, but you do get this incredible light, which almost makes you feel giddy. The kind of giddiness you can feel in Ireland in July.
I have another image of you. This is an August image, and it's the Kilkenny Arts Festival. It occurs, in August, and there has been a concert in St. Canice's Cathedral, and it is of your music. And we're all outside, then outside a pub. It's that business of the Irish summer where you feel entitled to stand outside a pub drinking your drink. It's not about smoking. It's just the people standing, gathering outside. I suppose it's illegal in some way, but no, nobody minds. And then watching you and your partner just walking away from us in that beginning of that summer light is going to end. Those long evenings are now coming to an end, and it's almost dark, but not quite. And you are walking up through Kilkenny, having had your concert. And again, it's another image. It's an August image where sometime in August, every school child in Ireland knows this. By the middle of August, you get a feeling in the air. Oh, it's not frost. It's not ice, but it's some cold comes into the air in the evening. And you realize you're going back to school soon. That actually the summer's over, and the summer is that middle of August when every other country is sweltering. In Ireland, you're aware somehow that business of what you're talking, the giddiness, the possibility of that is coming to an end.
Oh yeah, and actually that's inland of winter. It shifts in the middle of August. It shifts into this kind of heaviness that is then sort of energized at the start of September.
I want to know what you mean by if I said the word tone poem to you, what
Yeah.
would that mean?
Huh. Well, this has been described as a tone poem. I don't know. Yeah, I wonder. Part of me wonders if it's exactly a tone poem. I suppose a tone poem for me conjures up this image. I think of Sibelius or somebody when I think of a tone poem. And actually,
Vaughan Williams,
yeah, yeah,
Holst.
yeah. And weirdly, because I don't know why Sibelius comes into my mind. Also, this kind of cold tone poem that you can get.
Yeah.
Um, there is that, there's a poetic translation of these ideas of how we perceive time. So really, in this piece, I'm thinking of light being represented through harmony, and the way the overtone series goes through it, and the kind of recurrent time, and then to some degree the terror of linear time. I have a quote in the liner notes that I wrote from Beckett: 30,000 nights, hard to believe so few. Which is like one of his brilliant caustic summing up of things. But yes, I am even though this piece goes like from start to end, has a whole load of abstract things. What often inspires the kind of abstract movements of it is a kind of poetic translation of something I know from experiencing the year, and especially the year in Ireland. It's so interesting that you picked these two examples. January, I'll be in Dublin in January actually. I might even go and hear Bach in St. Anne's. There'll be the sense of the light then, and the sense of August already being the end, already the encroaching darkness. We feel it from middle of August. And so these powerful poetic ideas, I was translating them almost like a romantic composer
Yeah, yeah. You see, I wonder if a tone poem, what defines it is the absence of structure. You know, there was that Sibelius was so structured in his symphonies.
yeah,
And the tone poem allowed him just to go on and on, really anything that occurred. But that this is structured in really 12 months. So
yes.
the months give it the structure.
Yes,
Is, is
months
that
give
is
it
that is that
structure.
possible?
Yeah, but this has a structure. A very big. In fact, the translation of the year is quite structural in it. Also, the months give it the structure. The solstice. So there's a solstice in December and in June that I represent at the end of June, and then the equinoxes. So I have all these little
Yeah,
versions, 4 and 3 and things like that in it that you
yeah.
take from the
So
year.
I just wonder in the composition of it, if you would have written on a piece of paper, 12 months, then the equinoxes and then the solstices, and that you would start with that and you would look at that for a while before you would do anything, or would you work some other way?
Um, yeah, that's great. Great. Actually, I did know I was going to do it in 12 months, right from the start. And in fact, it was my plan I would spend a month writing each month. And so I started off in the same. Did I start off in the same month, or did I start off in November? Maybe I got ahead of myself a tiny bit to make sure I'd. And then I thought, then I sped up.
Was that done for luck or magic? That idea of a month per month, a month per month,
Yeah, I
or was
suppose
it was there another reason?
I think it was both practical that this was how I was going to like we were joking at the start of it there where I get this picture of you working blown up and put it on my wall, so it would like encourage me to be good. That it was both that, but also yes, that I would feel what that month felt like, and feel what it felt like here writing it in Princeton, but also remembering it from Ireland. But it was a structural thing. I was even going to map out the days. I even bought this strange book called the Oxford Book of the Year, where I read about each day, and then I thought, oh, this is going to hold me back too much. So, and then I just felt that in a way, this container of the 12 months was enough. But I was thinking also of these dividing it with the sol. I started deliberately with the solstice. December essentially is the solstice,
Yeah,
and then at June it turns into just at the end of it turns into the summer
yeah,
solstice,
yeah.
um, and these were kind of big markers in it. And then some movements were quite structural, that I would take this kind of structural translation, and others then were more tone poemy, really. March, I think of July, I think of as tone, but I still had this sense of where they were going to fit in this overall form. And
Um,
it's actually an
could you?
interesting piece to listen to live, because sometimes you can lose yourself as to which month you're in,
Yeah.
but then you do have a kind of sense of it too. It's as if.
Could you give us in some detail what I know instrument mightn't be the word, but what instruments you're using, what instruments we're actually listening to, what instruments you're composing for?
Yeah, it's so I actually wrote it for this terrific contemporary music group in America called Alarm Will Sound. And actually, my wife plays in Alarm Will Sound. So the person that you saw me walking off with in that sunset
Yeah.
in Kilkenny was Courtney, who plays in this group. She plays. So I
Yeah.
have some. I give her these strange solos in this piece in certain places in January and October, and the which she plays with this incredible leather mute that you put on the strings that gives it almost a sound that sounds like an electronic, like a sine wave. And so it is a good question to ask, because sometimes someone just asked me there recently, John Schaefer, who's a great guy who does a lot of new music in New York, on his show. That when he heard the start of it, he thought it was almost electronic, knowing that I had done stuff with electronics. So it's the way that they kind of blend. But the instruments is a sinfonietta, so it's like a little chamber orchestra, but only one of every instrument. So it's flute, oboe, two clarinets. One is playing the bass clarinet. A bassoon, which also doubles as a contrabassoon, which is this amazing low note that I can get for these kind of very barren sort of landscapes that appear in it. Then brass, so one of brass, so horn, trumpet, trombone, and then individual strings. Yeah, and no
Like
electronics.
like a cello, double bass, viola, violin.
Yes, yeah, two violins though. Yeah.
One of them with this leather thing onto
Well,
it.
yeah, she puts it on and off at different times. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
and so in January you heard this kind of strange, almost very lonely melody, and part of the reason it has this effect is this leather mute. That's on.
um, so that you knew all these people before you start. I mean, not the instruments, but the players before you started.
Yes, oh, I knew this group. Yes, because I'd already written a big piece for them called "The Hunger" about the famine in Ireland, and yeah, to some degree, I've had this longest association with this group, except for the group I founded, except for Crash Ensemble.
There's a, February has a sort of tougher sound. It's like really,
Yeah.
and that just the way I take it as the strings, as the violin or the viola come in June, but
Yes.
it's May. I want to talk about May,
Oh,
which is
yeah.
which is
Yeah.
you talk to me about May.
Well, that's a classic alarm will sound thing, actually. That came out of our rehearsals. So this is the second huge piece I'd written for Lammerson. And actually, I think I came to them wanting to write this one. And then, and they were very kindly into it. But I knew every single player then really well as to what they could do, and it really feels it's a different experience when you know the people involved. Really different from just abstractly writing. And in May we were rehearsing the premiere of this piece. Somewhat unusually was in Germany, and we were rehearsing in advance of the premiere, and they were trying to get the rhythms right at the start of May. They're kind of tricky. It's this explosion of energy. And Alan said to them, oh, why don't we just try scatting them or shouting them to get this rhythm? And so they were going, da, 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 da. And I was like, oh, wow, that's really great. Let's get rid of the notes and just have that there. And I'm going to keep some of these notes. And Alan said, really, really? No, you don't need to. We're just doing this to get the rhythms right. And it's a very tightly constructed piece. So he thought, you're not going to just get rid of something like that. You've really thought about these things. I said, no, I'm absolutely sure. And I
Oh,
do
it's
think,
great. It's great when it happens.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
fascinating that it didn't come to you in the reaches of the night when you were alone in the room.
no.
That it came from that give and take.
It came from an accident. Yeah, they doing it in rehearsal. And I realizing, to be honest, I also felt tired of pitch at that point in the piece. And I knew I needed something, but I hadn't figured it out. And when they did this, I went, oh, this is it. So I created these parts in it.
I want to ask you just really simple-minded questions and probably really banal ones about the act of composition in itself.
Yeah.
There isn't any chance, I suppose, there isn't possible that you write it all out on a piano first.
Well, I write some of it at the piano.
Do
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, yes. Yeah. So,
I would have thought that you, in composing for so many instruments, that you're constantly trying to imagine if you do this notation for this notation for that will go this way, and that it is done per instrument rather than finding a single sound.
oh no, sometimes I'm thinking of a single sound
Oh,
that
great,
put
really?
through the ensemble, yeah.
Yeah.
But also, I have these complicated things that are these little harmonies that are based on overtones, and sometimes I make like uh, what you might call not mock-ups because I'm doing them. I make various models of how they would go through the like starting in this one, down to this one, and then I transfer it into the instruments.
And
Yeah.
when you say models, using what?
I taught myself this new I taught myself this piece of software called Open Music, which is a Lisp based sort of algorithmic thing to be able to write these harmonic shapes basically, and I create these models in that, then write them out and then put them into the ensemble in different places. Yes, yes,
Because it does depend on a very refined system
yeah.
of knowing what each instrument will not just do, but do in combination with another as another one comes in.
Yes. So
Yeah.
I have these various sort of little. I was just writing about it the other day because Mike from Alarma Sound asked that I write about it, and did I have? I have it somewhere here. I drew out a graph of some of these things. I can't find it now. See, that's what it's when you need to find it.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's here. Oh, I have too many pieces of paper everywhere. It's too messy, Colm. So I do sometimes graph things out
Yeah.
first and then figure out how to do it. I thought of each movement having a particular musical process that I was going to investigate. I wanted it to have this kind of complete continuity and a process. And so I would say that I had three modes of writing. One was at paper, just thinking of it, and usually helped by the piano, by pitches, just finding pitches, the harmonic pitches on the piano, because I think so much in a very harmonically rooted way. I would sometimes make these elaborate, almost ways of flocking the material using this Lisp-oriented software environment that I taught myself. I had learned it years ago when I was in my 20s. I went to IRCAM in Paris, but then forgot it and couldn't really use it, and then taught it again at the start.
And had it developed as well? It's self-developed.
It had, and
Yeah.
it had developed, and they had written a lot more objects where you could attach it into music notation, so you could really
And
play.
are there many composers working with it?
Yeah, mainly though they would be a more completely modernist in their leanings than me. I have a very there's a lyrical bent still in what I do, and so I would be one of the few that do it and use it
Yeah.
from that kind of
Okay.
context,
Yeah. Yeah.
because also I'm nearly always the harmonies are written by hand first for
Yeah.
me, and and then I would put it into notation software on the computer and still be making huge changes there because I'm
Yeah.
orchestrating it. And then sometimes even with Alarmo Sound now, I will phone a player and ask them to play a little bit, and I hear it and can sometimes put that into
Yeah.
another mock-up so I can hear how that sounds in context, the real. So I was trying
Wow.
to imagine it from different angles. You know what's weird is that I just saw the other day in the newspaper that Frank Gehry died. And there was a great documentary of him made in the early 2000s about how he would make different mock-ups for the same building. So you could see it from different vantage points as he was creating it. And that always struck with me. It struck a kind of chord with me because I think that's often the way I compose as well. Yeah.
Yeah. There's something curious, which is that I would have thought some of the sounds you're making in this have a vague electronic sound.
Yeah.
And so when you're listing the instruments, I thought, surely there was one more thing.
Yeah.
Am
I
I,
think
am
it's,
I, is it, there's something you're getting that just doesn't sound like the harmonies you would get in a string quartet. There's one
yeah.
more thing at it. It must be the percussion, or it must be the wind instruments.
No,
But it
no,
may,
I think it's the way I use the overtones in the
okay,
harmonies. So the kind of if you look at the way sound is normally, like the tuning of these partials, and if you analyze sound, you'll see these, and I use them in my writing. So I orchestrate for those things. So the harmony goes in and out almost of it, the substance of sound. And what happens then is that that can sound electronic. Now, in the early days, when I first met you, way back, I think it was at Kevin Volan's house.
It was a very long time ago, Donnacha. It was,
Yeah,
I mean, you were very, very young.
yeah,
I wonder if
yes.
your parents knew you were out even.
Anyway, I was seriously into doing a lot of stuff with electronic music then. And I did a
Yeah.
lot, and now I mainly, I almost exclusively write acoustic music. There's part of me that's trying to transfer some of those sounds you could get with
Yeah.
electronics into to making the instruments, acoustic instruments,
Yeah.
sound electronic. Yeah.
One of the problems about being in Princeton or being in Los Angeles and
Yeah.
thinking about Ireland is the long tradition of pure sentimentality on the great subject of looking across the ocean and thinking I
Yes.
sat down upon a stone in Ireland, Gráth McCree, you're the only one for me, and
Yeah.
40
Yeah.
Shades of Green. And as a novelist writing about that business of transatlantic travel or transatlantic imagination, you got to be really careful that you don't get into this business of missing home.
Mhm.
Do you miss home? Oh, I miss home. I miss home. Oh, Ireland. Oh, I'm going home for Christmas. You know, and it break your heart. And you'd love a pint in a pub in Ireland. I love, and it just what's significant, I think about a land of winter is that this is absent. This set of sentimental feelings of, by sentimental I mean where the emotion has exceeded its cause,
Yeah.
and it emerges in a lot of ballads, but it emerges in feelings you can have yourself as well. But
Yeah.
I notice it's not there, and I'm delighted with that. That in other words, it seems to me sometimes you're much more interested in the harmonies you're making than in
Yeah.
trying to evoke a set of feelings about Ireland or not feelings about it, but I mean feelings about missing Ireland or what a beautiful place Ireland is. That the actual method you're using, the instruments, the sound interests you enormously.
So there are some. I think the initial impulse came from. I was in Iceland doing a piece called Tessellatum, and we were recording. Did the final recording on the 21st of December, and I was struck. Oh my God, this feels like Ireland because the day sort of barely begun, kind of half existed, and then descended into darkness, and that hit. That's where the start of Land of Winter came from me, like thinking about the light. And there is a kind of poetic thing, but I certainly didn't want to engage in any kind of mawkishness, kind
I know
of.
there is something in, say, for example, in Wexford,
Yeah,
because I'm on the coast in Wexford,
yeah,
and in June, as
mhm,
it goes towards about the 20th of June, if,
yeah,
if you're lucky enough to be there, you can look up at let me think, at the western sky,
yeah.
and there's still a glimmer of light in the western sky at midnight.
Oh, yeah.
And then as you're trying to sleep, you realize the sun is coming up on the other side, and it's only like 3:40, sorry, 3:30.
I
So
know.
basically, you've got 3.5 hours of
Yeah,
pure darkness.
yeah.
And thinking about that, it's just. I mean, I know you have to pay your bills. I know you have to drive into the village. I know there's going to be, but that thought and just that moment where you look up and think, this is really something.
Oh, that was in my head though. This kind of sense of one, and actually, I was thinking of it more in Kerry because my parents are from Kerry, and I spent a lot of time in Kerry, and the light is very long
Yeah,
there,
yeah,
because you're in the west too,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
you are out near the coast as well,
yeah.
and you can feel almost there's almost no night. That, but it did. Yeah, you have to be. You're right. As emigre artists, which we are to some extent, you have to be careful.
I love being an emigre artist. It's a great the emigre part, the artist, but the emigre like a Russian emigre.
Yes, you have to be careful of getting too like misty-eyed about things.
Yeah,
That I wanted it to. I wanted this to have a kind of gravelly sense. That that it could have a kind of hardness to it too.
yeah.
That I do feel actually it's weird that you picked June because I do think June almost is one of the ones in which I let a kind of a more there's a kind of there are sentimental aspects there in it, but there's also a very structural way that it proceeds, and then I get caught in that, and that's what I love a kind of poeticism that's also hard.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It also
yeah,
has
yeah,
that prevents it from tipping over into just a kind of uh, hackneyed thing, or else an emotion that's too easily, we
yeah,
especially know it in Irish America, this kind of
yeah,
um,
yeah.
kind of essentially wrong way of thinking
Yeah.
about it. To
Um,
some extent.
there's just to go to that question from the other side. Um, I wrote a novel about Thomas Mann
Oh yeah,
called The Magician, and I had to end the novel. I was trying to find some totalizing image, something larger than just the business of his mind or his what he was doing that day. And it struck me then that he went back to Lübeck at the end of his life, where he was from in the north of Germany. And of course, Lübeck is the town of Buxtehude. And
oh
Lübeck is the place that Bach walked to so that he could visit Buxtehude as a young composer. And Buxtehude was the organist in the main church in Lübeck. And this comes into Thomas Mann's mind, and it's a story his mother tells, like that tells every night or tells every week. The Bach walking and how far he walked and asking everybody, does anyone know the name of this man? And the mother's telling all the story. He has to get new clothes in case. And then he finds Buxtehude, and one of the says, what did Buxtehude say to him? And why did he come? And I have to think of something the mother would say. Well, he told him something that changed everything. And I'm making this up. I mean, the story of Bach's journey to Lübeck is
that's
real,
true, yes,
and the
yeah,
Buxtehude is real.
yeah, yeah.
But I have to make the next thing up. The mother, when they're all children, says to them, no, he told them how to put beauty into the music. That, and the kids all listen to this, and I've made this up. And what I'm interested in now is asking you is in this music. I mean, I'm saying what's absent is obviously any easy emotion, any simplicity, any
Yeah,
mawkish need for
yeah, yeah.
nostalgia over the old country. But what's also in the music is beauty. I mean, there's times when you're listening, you think, this, how did he get that sound to go there? Like you're not afraid to bring the music towards, and it's not sweetness. Sweetness is not the word, but it's something like sweetness, where there
Yeah.
are moments where you're getting something that might be hard emotionally, but a softness comes in to the listener as you hear it.
Yes.
And I know you were talking about, that this system you're using is used by pure, as it were, modernists, but I'm asking you, I suppose, a question about what's your approach to beauty? How do you feel about it?
Well, I mean, I think it's what drives me to create, really, is I want to create, you know, I sort of interested in a new sort of beauty. That's sort of the big thing. Like, and of course, it is going to respond to old beauty too. There are certain sort of correspondences of tones that just work so sort of beautifully. Sometimes I want to get at them from kind of unusual routes. Like I want to go an unusual road towards hitting this kind of really beautiful sound. But it is what draws me. I mean, I think sometimes I see artists become jaded or other composers, and I think, well, we're so lucky. We basically go into a room to create beauty, and we can survive doing that. That's kind of a great sort of way to live a life. I mean, you should do other things too, of course, but I but that has always, I mean, sometimes I think, like, I always think back to when I was like a kid and I was terrified of both death and eternity. So both options I thought are terrifying. And I still am. I can't even think of them too much without sort of feeling a panic. And that sort of gave me this kind of, I don't know, a sort of a weird feeling for sort of just the sensations of living our life here, and I still feel sort of like great beauty in things, and I am. It is what drives me as a composer, and I think there's like not a contradictory impulse within me. I think it's this same. It's like an integral way of hitting this beauty, where where it feels like maybe it belongs to me the way I've hit on it, that so that it never just then is off the shelf. A composer I really admire is I really admire Arvo Pärt's approach to the way he created these pitches, this kind of almost very, very strict system. But the result is really, really beautiful. But it's beautiful in a way that you can't quite predict what note will go where based on what music has come before. And I think that is that kind of striving for some sort of eternity in the music,
Yeah,
despite
yeah,
my
yeah,
terror of eternity in
yeah.
real, is
Do you
kind of
mean that
characteristic.
when you're actually just, let's say that you're composing a line, just let
Yeah,
me buy
yeah,
the word line from me for the
yeah,
moment. When you're
yeah.
composing a line, that it must not be predictable where it's going to now go. That you've got to constantly watch that.
Yeah. Well, are in relation to, well, so there's definitely points, you'd be fooling yourself if you thought your music existed in a vacuum. It definitely relates to other music, and as you know, words relate to other words, and we're playing on these sometimes. But I suppose I'm thinking of ways that a line might go from one note to the next, or what note might happen underneath it. Just to keep it that simple, that I'm trying to think of a way that's kind of bespoke, or at least that is uh, connected to my thinking of that I have a way of a kind of a pattern that I'm playing with in order to keep it at a level where it will both surprise you and yet feel right.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Feels right.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
also surprising you, and that is why some recently more and more. And I haven't listened to much of his music, but the more I get into it, the more I kind of love it. I sort of like Berg. You were talking about Berg and the violin concerto. The way he hit upon these kind of beautiful things there, from what seems like a system, the 12-tone system, which doesn't lend itself to beauty. So he almost used it as a barrier, and against this, then
Yeah,
his inclination found
yeah,
ways of making it
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah,
I don't think when I think of I'm not thinking of it as a barrier. I'm thinking of it as a way of creating a kind of a new type of sound, like this sound that you talked about that move between a kind of electronic and acoustic sound, and within that kind of um, thing, I also have this very strong urge to sort of create beauty. There is this
yeah.
line from Yeats. He's
Wow.
talking about something different. A terrible beauty is born. He's talking
Well,
about the
um,
whole.
I mean, it really does sound beautiful. It doesn't make me nostalgic as much as make me think and bring, that certain memories can come back from it. But it's not about, in other words, there's something too programmatic about the word tone poem.
Yes.
That this is or the Vivaldi, the four seasons.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is spring.
Yeah.
That it doesn't do that, it doesn't enact. But then odd time it does. So
Yeah.
it's, I mean, you never can tell what it's going to do. As
Yeah.
with May, you can never expect what's going to happen. But
Yeah.
anyway, I have to say I found it tremendously beautiful, and it requires a lot of close attention as well. That in other words, you don't need 1 month to go automatically into the other. You could stop a month, and I'm
Yeah.
certainly going back. I'm certainly going back to January to
Yeah.
hear that thing you're talking about because I hadn't noticed it, and
Yeah.
I think that for any, I'm a lay listener. I'm a fanboy. That therefore I need to pay a lot of closer attention. And so, listen, thank you very much for the music, and thanks for talking to me.
Oh, thanks so much, Colm. Thank you. Thanks. Um, I think I can. This is going to stop